Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate that her weak arm strength is not an excuse to leave dishes soaking for multiple days? After that, if you don't like the way I teach, why don't you complain to someone about it? And after that, hey, can you fix my daughter's laptop for free? Multiple times? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to do the dishes. I'll make you think! So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate that her weak arm strength is not an excuse to leave dishes soaking for multiple days? I, 36, female, inherited a 3-bedroom house when I was in my early 20s. In the beginning, I mostly just rented out to friends and coworkers and have always charged well below the general going rate for apartments in my area. I charge enough to cover fees, upkeep, etc. In exchange, I have some odd rules that are in the rental agreement. Also, because I live in the house too, any pets have to get along with my cat. Never been an issue. Friends can come over, but overnight guests have to be approved, and that just means let me know how long they're staying ahead of time. And the big ones, the kitchen needs to be kept clean. Dishes don't sit out overnight. You clean your mess that day, barring emergencies or something. Basically, I never want to walk into my kitchen in the morning to make my coffee and find a mess. Jenny has been living here 6 months. She's the sister of one of my former tenants, but about 2 months ago, Jenny started getting into cooking more than she normally would. She started leaving dishes overnight to soak and would wake up early in the morning and give me a sheepish smile and say, "Oh, I just don't have the arm strength to clean these right after. They have to soak." I let her know once or twice was fine, but please don't make a habit out of it. Fast forward to about a week ago, she made a roast chicken and sides, left the dirty dishes all over the kitchen. She went to work the next morning, leaving everything to soak. Meanwhile, I had no space to make my breakfast and there was an overall unpleasant odor. When she got back, she went to her room to wash up and she was about to leave again for something, and I asked her when she was going to clean the kitchen. She just stood there awkwardly and said, I have plans, so I was going to do it tomorrow. They have to soak. It's too hard." She gave me an exaggerated pout. I told her that they had already soaked and she needed to clean them. She started to clean them, but made a pitiful bunch of "oof" and noises as she heaved the dishes around and grunted really extravagantly, trying to get across that it was just so hard and everything was too heavy and stuck to the pan. I got tired of the theatrics and told her that her weak upper body strength isn't an excuse to be a slob and that she either commits to cleaning her dishes the night she dirties them, as agreed, or she can move out and go slob up someone else's house. She started crying and stormed off, leaving all the dishes. She sent me a text saying that she's afraid of me now and that she doesn't feel safe living there because my absolutely crazy rules. She started calling people on her social media about it and telling people that I'm a mean old jerk and that it's absolutely insane she's expected to clean her dishes that night and how I mocked her weakness. I've never had an issue like this before with a roommate/tenant, but it's honestly making me think it'll be my last one. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Maybe OP just needs to let it soak for a while. If you don't like the way I teach, why don't you complain to someone about it? So today at work, we were talking about my rather bad handwriting, and it reminded me that perhaps the proudest moment of my life could be considered malicious compliance. If it is not, I apologize. But the reason I'm posting this is because I did what I did with the intention to get my teacher in trouble, which worked in the long term, but I did not expect the events to follow my compliance to occur. This story is also quite long, which I apologize for as well. This took place roughly 19 years ago when I was in middle school. I had, and still have, a disability that prevents me from writing legibly. However, my parents quickly learned I had an insane typing speed. As a result, my ADHD psychologist and parents got me an AlphaSmart word processor for my 5th grade Christmas present. It would be an understatement to say this was a life changer. My assignments became so much easier. I knew this stuff, but couldn't write it down. My attitude about school changed, and I became the hip, popular kid at school for having this fancy new piece of cutting-edge technology. None of my teachers between the 5th and 7th grade had an issue with this and were quite impressed by the technology. Mind you, word processors weren't exactly new. but seeing them in schools were unheard of at this point as they were quite expensive. This changed in the 8th grade with Mrs. Grump. Mrs. Grump was your traditional old woman who looked like my great-great-grandmother. Gray hair, wrinkles upon wrinkles, a long bead necklace, flower print outfits, and clip-on earrings. Seriously, she was one bobbed hairdo away from being Karen's grandmother. First day I took my word processor out, she was on my back. Anytime she saw me with it, she would threaten to take it from me and reduce my marks for the class. I recall myself standing up for myself for the first time, but I was never one to argue with my teachers. I never needed to because my teachers up until then were completely understanding. When she said no, I backed off. At that point, school became miserable for me. When I typed up my assignments, Mrs. Grump lowered my marks for not being handwritten. Anytime I asked her if I could stay after class to finish my assignments or finish writing down my notes, she would lower my marks on the next assignment for wasting her time. Anytime I asked a friend for help while in class, you guessed it, she would lower my marks. Luckily, as most of my fellow students understood my problems, a group of them approached me and offered to help me. They started offering me their notes each evening so I could bring them home and photocopy so I could keep up with everything. We also hung out in the library at lunches, and they actually helped me with my handwriting so it could be at the very least legible, allowing me to write out my homework, despite it taking super long. I genuinely don't know what her problem was, but she began reducing my marks because of poor handwriting and inspecting my binders to make sure I wasn't stealing other people's work. If she found a photocopied note, say it with me, she would lower my marks. This was absolutely ridiculous, as none of my classmates were marked in such a way. Now, as I explained, I am not one to question authority. Despite being miserable with Mrs. Grump's attitude, I quietly accepted I would probably fail. Unfortunately, I don't remember why my parents didn't help, but I think it might have been due to my older brother being part of Mrs. Grump's in the past, and they thought I was being overdramatic. ADHD, remember? With the background out of the way, on to the compliance. I don't know what happened this particular day, but I had a sudden surge of confidence. It was a particularly bad day. I remember we were doing an assignment involving microscopes in class. We needed to describe what we saw, and instinctively, I brought out my word processor. I put it on the table and looked down into the microscope, but when I came back up, Mrs. Grump was standing at my desk with my word processor in her hand. Mrs. Grump: "I am confiscating this and throwing it away." Me, stuttering: "But I need it, and it's expensive." "Too bad. I have warned you many times not to bring it out in my class. You didn't listen, and so these are the consequences." At this point, she put it in her cabinet unit and shut the door. Everyone in the class was silent, and Mrs. Grump sat back down. Some of my classmates tried to calm me down. I was crying, and Mrs. Grump didn't care. In particular, I recall, of all people, one of the students who usually bullied me tried to cheer me up. We'll call him Jim from now on, as Jim now works as a coach at a gym now. I didn't work on the assignment, and when Mrs. Grump came to take my blank sheet, she scoffed. "If you don't like the way I teach, why don't you complain to someone about it?" I left the classroom, defeated, but to my surprise, during lunch, Jim came up to me with my word processor in hand. He stole it out of the teacher's cabinet while she was returning the microscopes to the lab. He told me he was going to keep it in his locker till after school when he'll return it. That way, I wouldn't get in even more trouble when she finds it missing. It was at that moment when I snapped. I don't know what it was. Maybe the fact that the person who had bullied me for so long was the one helping me. But I wanted Mrs. Grump gone. But what was I going to do? Well, complain to someone, of course. She is the teacher, and it's not like me to disobey the teacher. Now, in any other situation, I honestly don't think this would have worked, but I got extremely lucky in regards to the events that followed this decision. So myself and Jim went to the school's principal during lunch. Me and the principal, up until this point, had never officially met, as she had just started at the school this year after the previous principal retired. We're going to call the principal Mrs. Awesome. Mrs. Awesome was eating at her desk and was surprised to be interrupted, though she did sigh when she saw Jim. I know for a fact those two were well acquainted. I think she thought the two of us had got in a fight, so she asked me to sit down and for Jim to wait outside. I started explaining to her what happened in class, and after she realized Jim wasn't to blame, she called him back in to support my story. When I mentioned the word processor, however, her eyes lit up. Despite never formally talking before, it was clear she knew who I was. The discussion shifted to the word processor itself, and she asked me to go over its functions and everything. I showed her how I could type on it, transfer the files to a computer to either print off or email, the typing tutorials loaded on it. I explained why I needed it, showing her my handwriting and how I had relied on it since the 5th grade. She and Jim seemed quite interested in it, taking notes and everything. At the end of the impromptu tutorial that lasted, Mrs. Awesome thanked me and had us step out for a moment. After she brought me back in, she explained to me that there was nothing she could do at this point in time. She gave me an out-of-school suspension for a week, but explained I was not in trouble at all and it wasn't being marked against me. The explanation I believe she gave was for stealing out of the teacher's cabinet, though I wasn't required to return the word processor. This also got Jim out of trouble as well, which he was thankful for. Mrs. Awesome said that everything will be taken care of next week when I return, and she'll contact my parents explaining the situation. The week I was off, Jim was coming by and dropping off his homework so I could photocopy it and not fall behind. Quite frankly, at first I thought he just wanted me to do his work for him, as it was a complete 180 on how he used to treat me, but we became good friends after this happened. Even asking him today, Jim doesn't recall why he started treating me better after Mrs. Grump took my word processor. During those days, my parents were on the phone constantly. I wasn't aware what was going on, but they bought me a new game, bought takeout a lot. Genuinely, I felt pampered. My parents came in with me when I returned, but rather than to the classroom, I was brought to the school's boardroom instead, where a bunch of people in suits were. My family doctor and ADHD psychologist was also in attendance, which honestly shocked me. Mrs. Awesome explained to me that these were representatives from the school board and that they were extremely interested in my word processor. In hindsight, it was a bit of a jerk move for no one to inform me that I was being brought in front of the school board to present my word processor, but I began explaining it like I did to Mrs. Awesome, showing the different functions and such. After I finished, my family doctor and psychologist gave a better explanation than what I gave as to why I needed it and how it helped, and it ended with my parents explaining how it has changed my education and how I enjoyed school. Honestly, I don't recall the immediate response, but a day later, Mrs. Awesome did explain everything to me. Apparently, she was actually a sitting member of the school board who had been standing in as principal that year until they found a replacement. When I showed her the word processor, she saw the potential they had to help students such as her own daughter who had similar circumstances as me. She contacted the school board about potentially investing in some word processors for each school in the district for the next year, but they wanted to see it first. Again, this was a rather new concept, all things considered. That's why she needed me that day, and why she allowed me to stay home for the week, as there was no rule in place to protect the word processor from being confiscated and possibly destroyed. I still question why I was never informed until the actual meeting, but whatever. Anyways, due to the presentation, I was given permission to continue working on my word processor, much to Mrs. Grump's dismay. She was also required to adjust all my previous marks to remove her deductions. Meanwhile, the school board decided to order 5 to 8 word processors for each school in the district for the next year, this school getting 8 as it was a larger school. Students in what was called resource class, basically a class for students who needed extra attention, had the option to sign out the word processors for a day to help work on their in-school assignments. There was an altogether increase of the resources students' marks as a result of this change, I've been told, and the school board began looking into other ways to help students. But what about Mrs. Grump? Other than having to readjust my marks and allowing me to use my word processor, she got off scot-free. It's great and all that I made a huge difference in my school district, but how did Mrs. Grump get her just desserts for making 8th grade a living heck for me? Well, I don't know if this was mere coincidence, outside interference, or a parting gift from Mrs. Awesome after she returned to her position in the school board, but all resource students coming into 8th grade had been assigned to Mrs. Grump's class the next year, and as a result, they were signing out the word processors constantly in her class. I learned this because my 9th grade class was right across the hall from her classroom, and windows in the classrooms allowed me to look across into her class to see 4 to 6 students typing up a storm on their word processors. This came to a head, however, when Mrs. Grump took one of the word processors and threw it out the window. After that, Mrs. Grump was asked to retire halfway through the school year and replaced with the sweetest teacher that held ice cream parties for the students that completed all of their homework assignments each month. And that, everyone, is probably the proudest moment in my life. Not only did my actions result in students with disabilities getting more resources to help them, but I also watched the worst teacher I ever had the pleasure of meeting get escorted out of the building by security. Brief update. I really didn't expect this to blow up like this, so I thought I would elaborate on a few things, specifically regarding why I didn't get my parents involved. Asked my mother this, and she recounted this story. I was actually quite embarrassed by my parents at the time due to something that happened in the 7th grade. We went to an overnight camp as a class trip, and my parents were supervisors. My father accidentally set fire to my tent, so I was forced to sleep in their tent instead. Rumors started going around the school, specifically from Jim, I believe, that, while quickly quashed, left a rather sour impression. Needless to say, I tried my best not to get them involved, such as not showing them my assignments and stuff. They were incredibly disappointed when they learned the truth, but were equally proud I stood up for myself. Also, this took place in Canada, Nova Scotia. I genuinely don't believe I was the one who started the wide use of Alpha Smart 3000s being used across the world in schools. But I do like to think I was the one who started it in the Atlantic provinces. Have you ever had a teacher like Mrs. Grump? If so, what did she do? Please let us know. Hey, can you fix my daughter's laptop for me? Multiple times? A bit of backstory / personal beliefs. I'm willing to help my friends, but we all know someone who has or have themselves a friend who is the group mooch. The kind of person who knows you're getting together and just shows up, nothing in hand, and expects to be given free food the entire time. Yet sadly, you put up with them till it gets to the breaking point. This story is about said friend whom I finally got to the breaking point with. My moocher friend isn't tech savvy, like at all. He has zero respect for tech and constantly uses me as his go-to man when stuff goes sideways, almost always his doing. This is from the olden days of Windows 8 being a fresh hot mess and was the next big thing everyone hated because it took the standard Windows interface, tossed it into a wood chipper, then proceeded to light the remaining slurry on fire. I hate Windows 8 in case you didn't pick up on that. He had recently bought a laptop for his daughter since she was starting to need it for school, and he wanted a mobile PC to use when he felt like it. Pretty sure he just wanted it for himself, but needed to convince the wife to okay the expense. Instead of asking me for input, he decided he was just going to go to the big blue multi-story and buy the cheapest laptop model. It took less than a day of him fighting with it to call me and ask if I'd put Windows 7 on it because he hated Windows 8. I asked why not return it and get a Windows 7 model, to which he responded, "Big Blue doesn't have any Windows 7, and my daughter really needs this computer." Sure she does. I agree, and he drops it off within an hour. I should note that this happened first after Windows 8 had dropped and there was no classic shell programs out that simply said, "Buzz off, new design, we're using the old one everyone knows and can use." So my options were limited. Did an initial look at what I was getting myself into, and lucky me, they had only put out drivers for Windows 8 for this model. Yay! I'd do about 6 hours worth of hunting, downloading, and tweaking drivers, and praying to the tech gods as I installed Windows 7. I had to cherry pick working drivers for most of the hardware. The rest I got to work through sheer trial and error. I made a restore disk, backed up and labeled every driver for this system in individually numbered folders in case I needed to redo anything on this computer. My friend is notorious for messing up his computer's operating systems. I gave him a ring and let him know it's good to go, and he picks it up the next day. Less than 2 weeks later, he texts saying there's something wrong with it. It won't do blah blah blah, or I can't get it to do what I want. Shocking, I know. I just restore from the disk I made and give it back the same day. Let's see how long this lasts. Almost a week later, same thing. Again, a quick restore and I give it back. This time, it took almost a whole 3 weeks till I got a text. Now I'm upset, but what the heck is he doing to this thing to mess up the operating system? I finally took the time to look at the system and see what the heck was going on. He had a bunch of cracked games downloaded and was trying to run those, had a bunch of viruses on it, and a bunch of shady sites in his browser history. I'm livid, and the only reason I kept fixing this dang thing was because it was supposed to be his daughter's. I got a hold of his wife to see exactly who was really using the laptop and for what. Turns out he told her it was having issues and he was constantly trying to fix it at home and even took it to work to mess around with it when he had time. He was a manager at a hut that sells pizza. He's one of those real hands-on managers who lets everyone know what needs to be done, then messes around in the office. So I get the evil idea of fixing things my way. My first step to fixing things my way was to make an admin account that only I had the info for and limit the other accounts to a limited user. When I talked to his wife, I got a good idea of what his daughter really likes as far as shows, games, etc. I then proceed to pimp this laptop out for her. My Little Pony wallpapers, about 100 on rotate. The entire My Little Pony cartoon show stored directly on the computer. Bratz, Barbie, the works. I even redid the icons to a My Little Pony theme and tweaked the user's interface to be pink and purple colored. I made sure there was a parental lock on the browsers to prevent anything shady related from even showing up on the laptop. I installed TeamViewer and locked in my personal credentials so I could get on anytime I needed. And just for good measure, I installed a handy program called Deep Freeze. For those unfamiliar with it, it snapshots the drive as is and restores the drive to that exact image every time the power cycles. Only downside to this program is you lose anything you save on the computer when the power cycles. Not a problem since I had gotten a bulk pack of thumb drives that were multicolored and came with little lanyards. I even went a step above and beyond and got a My Little Pony skin for the laptop lid in case he thought of taking it to work again. I personally delivered the laptop this time when the wife and daughter were home. The girly, high-pitched squeals of joy that nearly ruptured my eardrums made it all worth it. She went off on a joy-induced tirade as I show her and her mom everything I did. Everything, including all of the shows and games I put on just for her. I then gave her a bright pink thumb drive with purple lanyard and explained that when she wanted to play the games or save anything, the drive needed to be plugged in. I set the save path for all the games to the thumb drive and added a shortcut to the drive itself on the desktop to make sure she wouldn't lose any schoolwork she was doing. I made sure both her and her mom knew the thumb drive had to be plugged in, otherwise things wouldn't be saved. I didn't mention the parental lock I set up or deep freeze. I wanted it to be a surprise for my friend later. Both her and her mom thanked me. I got a big hug from the daughter who was still flying around on cloud 9. She was begging her mom to watch My Little Pony with her before I even left. I knew it was only a matter of time till I got an angry text/call from my friend as soon as he got a chance to use the laptop, and I was waiting with gleeful anticipation. I had dropped the laptop off on Monday, and I knew he wouldn't get the chance to use it till Friday when he got back from a trip he took. Cue to Friday night, and I get a phone call around 8, which I ignore and let it go to voicemail. I get 3 more calls every 5 to 10 minutes, which I also ignore. Then I get a bunch of texts, which I ignored till about 11 p.m., when I figured he had ample time to try and mess with the laptop to only be shut down at every attempt. I call him up with an especially snarky attitude, acting half asleep just to upset him. Mooch: "Finally, where the heck have you been? I tried calling you and texting, but you never responded." Me: "Yeah, I had a long day, so I took an evening nap. What's up?" Mooch: "What's up? This piece of crap laptop is busted. That's what's up. I can't get anything to work right. I downloaded a game and tried installing it, but it says I don't have admin rights. I restarted it and the game files were gone completely, so I re-downloaded it but still couldn't install it. It's not even letting me browse the web. I thought you fixed this. What the heck?" Me: "Calm down. I'm sure it's something simple. Let me remote in." Mooch: "Wait, you can do that?" Me: "Yeah, I got sick of having to have it dropped off, so I installed remote software. Let's see. First thing I do is remotely restart the system." Mooch: "It did it again." Me: "What?" "The game I downloaded is gone from the desktop." Me: "Oh yeah, I put software on the laptop that restores it to a default setting. Anything not saved on an external drive gets removed. I gave your wife and daughter a thumb drive. Didn't they tell you it was needed?" "No. What the heck? Why'd you do a stupid thing like that?" "Well, I've had to fix this thing 3 times already, and I got sick of it, so I made sure anything you downloaded or tried to install would be deleted and blocked. You don't have admin rights. I do. Last time, there was over a dozen viruses from your games, and the games you were trying to run would barely run on this laptop, even if you had legit versions." Mooch: "What the heck?" Insert 15-minute rant I didn't pay attention to because I don't care. "Well, why won't it let me browse the web?" Me: "Are you sure? Let's see." I bring up Google and start browsing standard sites. Hit a few cartoon sites I favorited for his daughter. Everything looks fine to me. Could you be referring to those shady sites that were in the browser history on your daughter's laptop? Mooch: Me. Yeah, I thought so. See, me being the upstanding guy I am, I turned on parental controls to keep web browsing safe for your kid. What the heck is wrong with you?" Mooch: "But..." Me: No buts. It took a lot of work to get this thing working for your daughter's sake, and then you use it as your personal play toy, which I had to fix 3 times? I'm done with your BS. I made it so your daughter can use her laptop when and how she needs. If you want to get your own laptop and mess it up beyond repair, that's fine by me. No more freebies if you mess something up being an idiot. If you think this is unfair, I'd be more than happy to let your wife know exactly what the issue with the laptop was, including screenshots of your browsing history. I don't mind helping, but you go above and beyond being a mooch a lot of times. Anything else you need help with? Mooch. No. Me. Have a great weekend. Click. Having spent over 18 years in customer service/tech support, so I went a bit nuclear on him, but I had enough of his crap. Reminded me all too many times the problem isn't the hardware/software, it's the meat puppets smashing their face against the keyboard and wondering why stuff doesn't work. So I simply removed that part of the equation. Amazingly enough, he didn't have any more issues with that laptop. Wonder why? Only time I was gotten a hold of was by his wife, asking me to update some things and install some software the daughter needed for school, which I was more than happy to do. Have you ever had a friend that tried to use you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I'll force you to smash that like button. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that if he doesn't go to work, he's no longer using anything of mine, including my car and Wi-Fi? 28 female and 29 male. Been together for like 4 years, I think. I love this guy to death, but when I say he's lazy, that is seriously a huge understatement and doesn't even shed an ounce of light on the actual problem. He's also a gaming junkie, like the worst of their kind. For example, when a game is being released, he waits up until midnight to purchase the game, no matter how expensive, and will binge on it for weeks straight while hardly sleeping. During this time, you'll be lucky to get as much as a hello out of him without him getting upset for you disrupting him, but still expects people to literally cater to his every need so that he doesn't have to get up to do anything. I don't entertain this because I'm not his mother. Anyways, a year and a half ago, I had to give him an ultimatum. You either get a job and start supporting yourself, or you can leave and go mooch off someone else. He chose to get a job. Lasted a month before he quit. Found another job 2 months later, lasted 2 weeks and quit. He was unemployed for 11 months when he finally landed this job in September. Assassin's Creed was just released, 2 weeks ago? And he started calling out every single day. Started staying up until 4 a.m. playing this game, would sleep until 8 to 10 a.m. and then be right back at it while asking me to cook and cater to him. Yesterday, I unplugged and hid his Xbox. I knew he was going to call out and jump on his game. As I suspected, that's exactly what he tried doing. He picked a fight with me, said he hated working, and I was forcing him to waste away his life. Claimed he was depressed, though that's the worst I've heard of it. He then tells me to get off my lazy butt and do something for once. I told him to leave. He takes my car because his is on its last leg. His words. He's not in work clothes, so I know he wasn't going to work. I texted him and said, if you aren't going to work, bring my car back. And if you plan on flaking on this job like the rest of them, you will not be using my car or my internet. Make your choice. He texted back saying, you trying to mother me all the time is a turnoff. You holding things against me all the time also makes you a jerk. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I bet this guy's diet consists of tendies and juicy cups. I'm not a tour guide. About 11 years ago, my wife and I got engaged. My mother-in-law decided to gift us with an expenses-covered trip to Paris as an engagement gift. So we found ourselves spending a week in Paris, enjoying the city. Also, we met an old friend. My friend, nicknamed Indy, was doing a postgraduate degree in Paris. We met a couple of nights, and we scheduled to visit the Louvre together. Next day, we met outside of the Louvre. Along with Indy was his girlfriend. She was a history of arts major, slightly important for later, from Norway. Indy was an archaeologist postgrad. He has, since his preteen years, an obsession with ancient history, important for the story. Also relevant to the story, my wife likes to read a lot of history books. We start our tour in the Louvre from the Roman section with Indy taking the role of explaining what we were seeing. Now, because of his girlfriend, we all speak English. We pass the Roman section, followed by the Greek, stopping on the Aphrodite of Milos. In that section, Indy really took off with his explaining, not only with Aphrodite, but with the muses as well. Statues of them in the same section. Then up the stairs to take pics of Nike and onwards to the Renaissance section. On the way towards the next section, we stopped in a room that had models of some of the wonders of the ancient world. One of them was a model of the Temple of Zeus in Olympia and the giant statue of Zeus made from ivory and gold. Indy stops to explain this to his girlfriend, and my wife decides to chip in about cheating in original Olympic Games. Started a lighthearted banter. They're talking in our native language, and I'm trying to translate to Indy's girlfriend. And then it happened. We've got me, we've got Indy, We've got Stressed Mom. We've got Amazed Kids 1 and 2. Stressed Mom. Excuse me, what's the guide talking about? I turn around and see a woman in her 30s and 2 boys. The older is around 8 to 9 and the younger around 5 to 7. Everything on her screams tourist. She wears a sundress, has a small backpack with supplies for the kids, we found out later, a guide to the Louvre book, and a look of stress on her face. My wife and I have that look occasionally now. It's common on parents. Me. They're talking about cheating on the ancient Olympics. Amazed Kid 1. Wow, they used to cheat back then? The younger one is glued to the model. Kid 2. Who's that? He asked, pointing at the statue. That caught Indy's attention. Indy. That's Zeus, the leader of the Greek gods. Kid 2. Wow. Kid 1. Where is Mona Lisa? Indy. Down the corridor. You can't miss it. Kid 1. Cool. Can you tell us the story for that? An awkward pause from everyone. Stressed Mom, a bit embarrassed. You're not a tour guide, are you? Indy. No, madam, I'm not. A sigh came out of Stressed Mom. She grabbed her book tighter. Stressed Mom. I'm sorry. You were speaking with such authority, and the book is so unhelpful. We kind of thought, you know. Indy. It's all right. I hope I helped. In fact, we were going to visit the next section. If you want to follow, but I won't do the talking. Hannah, his girlfriend, is more apt in this period than I am. Hannah waved, smiling. Kid 1. Can we go with them, Mom? Please? She looked to each of us, trying to decide. If it's not too much trouble. No trouble at all, both Indy and Hannah replied. Kids 1 and 2. Yeah! Stressed Mom. But you have to be quiet and listen to the nice people. Kids 1 and 2. Yes, Mom. They followed us the rest of the day, with either Indy or Hannah answering the kids' questions. It was lovely to see the look of amazement on their faces as we walked through the museum. The mother told us her husband was invited in a week-long convention in Paris for his company and brought them along for vacation. She insisted to buy us lunch, which we politely declined. We settled for coffee in one of the small cafes outside of Louvre. Her husband joined us later on. The kids asked a million questions about the exhibits during our coffee, but their true delight was when they discovered Hannah was from a country that had Vikings. You probably haven't seen this video, so come watch it next and we'll see you when you get there. And support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make a special Happy Holidays video for your loved ones, come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.